very sorry for rocking up late to my own live. Bad form, I know, but I had to push it back half an hour, and then, as you can see, I'm possibly several minutes late. But I'm here, and we're going to be doing another deck collection series because we are nearly done, which I am, as you can imagine, or as you can tell, probably quite excited about that. I have enjoyed it, and I've already pre-recorded a reflective video, which I've yet to edit, on my feelings about my collection. But I'm also very much done with the process and wish I had made perhaps the videos just a tiny bit like more decks and less videos. But nevertheless, we are going through the Lenormand, Playing Card and Affirmation decks today. Of course, if anyone has any questions, then because it is a live, I will still speak to you. I'm not going to fully ignore you. I've got the other computer up and I can hopefully see your comments, but they are always super delayed, so apologies. And I also, if you did tune into the last one, I shared some of the decks that I had mentioned but were passing on. I also shared the decks that had come into my practice, and I forgot one. So there was 2 decks that had come into my practice since I started these videos, because I don't generally bring too much in nowadays. Hi Vika, it's good to see you. Thank you for coming. Sorry I was late. Yeah, I mentioned the Vampire Tarot or Tarot of Vampires. I can never remember what way round it is, but it's the Llewellyn one, and the Woodland Wardens. But because I had only got this deck maybe the week before, for somehow it had slipped my mind. So I will also be including the other deck that a dear friend gifted me so that my collection is fully fleshed out. Before we jump into the Lenormand, remember that with the decks, some of the decks could have fit into other categories. So technically the 𝗪𝗂𝗎𝗄𝗄 does have all of the original Lenormand cards in it, but that's not how I use it as a deck. I've never used it as a Lenormand deck in the traditional way. I very much go by how I associate those cards, and because I don't know almost squat about Lenormand, which you will hear about, I'm sure that those associations probably aren't Lenny ones. So yeah, that's not included. It's already been discussed, but as you can see, it's out and about on my altar, my usual daily pool, and then I actually did a weekly card as well, because I just felt like it. Hello, lovely Logan, who, as he is in the chat, I don't know how long he's going to stay. We will start off with his Lenormand, and the reason that I have Lenormand decks in the first place, because when your friend makes something, it's always freaking fabulous. Like, I still have things that my friends have made, and I just can't get over the fact that I can, but it's breathtaking that their genius minds and creativity make this stuff. So this is going to be incredibly biased, but what I will tell you is that I still struggle with Lenormand. So this is the Precious Possum Lenormand, and these are some more significator cards that I'm assuming that weren't the ones that I picked. There's 6 altogether. At least there was in the edition that I've got. So it comes with a cute little book. Obviously, I can't tell you much about the process of reading them because 2 things that I've realised. One, Lenormand doesn't seem to come naturally to me, which is strange because I have no problem with the reading intuitively. Of course, I read the 𝗪𝗂𝗎𝗄𝗎, and of course some of those items are correspondences from like witchcraft practices and specific ways of working that I've incorporated. So it's not like my memory retention is completely useless. I can't quite put my finger on what it is about me and Lenormand that is struggling. But in fairness to it, I haven't dedicated the fair amount of time to it, which is why I mean, I would treasure this deck anyway, but I have another one. Also gifted to me by this lovely human being, but not created by him. I would like to learn it at a later point. I enjoy that different cards have a different sort of, they add a very set nuance, as opposed to tarot feels a little bit more like, expansive is not the word I want, but it can go here, there and everywhere in much more of a capacity than the Lenormand. And I really enjoy structure, but I've been learning the runes, both the 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 and then the extension, the Anglo-Saxon extension. And that's really where I suppose my learning divination brain is preoccupied, and therefore this has suffered the consequences. But this deck is freaking adorable. I love how it sort of meshes the world of fantasy and nature. And one of the things that is a really strong point in this is a lot of the difficult points in Lenormand are proactively dealt with in this deck. So what I mean by that is the my words today, excuse me people, the significator cards, also Possum. So you can gender these any which way you want, and there's lots of options for not just gendering them the way you want, but feeling more seen in your expression through the cards. Obviously, you're not a possum, unless there's something I don't know about you, but and also some of the symbology that also feeds into that, or has maybe some religious aspects to it, have been adapted and moved around. From memory, I think it's discussed in the book. I think that makes this an approachable and accessible deck for people who have been waiting for that, you know, which is pretty important, because we saw a lot more of that in tarot in recent years, but I feel like perhaps not so much of it in Lenormand. And again, I'm not a Lenormand reader, so I can't speak for everyone, but I've watched a fair amount of videos, and Logan is saying something, so let's see what he said as well. You also hit a huge learning block with starting with Lenormand. It was having none of me, and I was putting my first Lenny deck away for like a year or more. And then Raina George's Lenny book is fantastic for starting out. Okay, I will not remember that, so you can text me that later. No pressure. Look at it, it's freaking cute, right? However, Logan, being the creator, has given me permission, which I know I don't need permission to do this, but people are funky online, right? And don't like it if you read a Lenormand deck like an oracle, because that's what the online world has come to. That's unfortunate. Not everyone, but that's some of what happens online, right? Oh, I need to get the other deck out. I haven't. It's lean. And I was saying to him, it makes total sense to me as an oracle deck. So I can, and I do get it out and I pull from it, but I don't read it as a Lenormand, which is the probably irritation to other people. So the other one, and this was on my wish list, which then probably seems really bizarre to everyone, The Seeker's Lenormand, which is by Andy Schwartz, aka Skull Garden, the same creator as the Earthbound Oracle and the Wooden Tarot, which, as people will know if they know me, I freaking love. I'm obsessed with his artwork, which is one of the reasons why I knew that this deck was for me. And secondly, I will happily use this, and again, I don't share that part of my practice, mainly because I just can't be bothered with the online responses. But in terms of like my actual lived practice, which most of which isn't online anyway, I will use this in the same way that I would use my 𝗪𝗇𝗪𝗂𝗺. So you know, I've got my own associations to snake and coffin and flowers. One of the decks that comes to mind, I suppose, as well as the 𝗪𝗇𝗪𝗧, that sort of has that symbolic power but isn't strictly a Lenormand, is I don't own it, but what's it called? The Mildred Payne's Oracle. And so for me, using this and using the Precious Possum, I can do that in that capacity and have no problems with it. It works really, really well for me, just based on my own associations. So essentially I just go rogue with them. And I'm comfortable with that. It works for me for the time being until I feel like I've got the space, and then I come back to it, because I would like to. I'm just not going to force myself to at a time. Forcing the experience of any hobby, divination tool, anything like that just doesn't make sense to me anyway. I freaking love this picture. But as you can see, this is exactly the mood of the other two decks, and I am so here for it. Are the Skull Garden Lenormand and Earthbound Oracle the same size? So there are two sizes of these, 𝗵𝘂𝗧. I will get the Earthbound so that you can see my size, but I think that there is a smaller. Let's have a look. You have to, my Earthbound is like 𝗪𝘁𝗀𝗀𝗀 something chronic. Yep, they are exactly the same size. Oh, love this cardstock. Oh, look at the fox before I put it away. So I think that there's a mini version of this, but for those who are interested, hey Joanna, I hope that dinner's nice, by the way. Thank you for joining. But yeah, look at that. And also then you can tell these are grubby because I've had them for ages, and I'm learning more and more that I must just be a grubby human, because other people keep saying to me that their decks are pretty clean. I'm a skin picker and a face toucher, so it's not happening. But yeah, same size. And now I'm getting confused. There we go. Freaking love this. Is it not just beautiful? So they are technically my only two Lenormand decks, unless, like I said, it's all in the 𝗪𝗇𝗪𝗧. It's just, I don't use it like that. And I've never felt the desire to separate the cards out. You're very welcome. The mini is out of print. It was just a Kickstarter bonus. Okay, duly noted. Thank you for telling me, because otherwise I'll get loads of messages saying, I looked for it. Where is it? Let's have a look. Next, we're going to go the Affirmation decks, because I barely have any of those at all. I have decks that are kind of affirmational in vibe. Even then, not very many. I'm quite, you know, settled with being able to do affirmations for myself anyway. But it is nice to have some fallbacks, because I can be a meanie. I can be a self meanie sometimes, and then it's nice. So I have two before we move on to like the playing cards, which are the biggest portion. They are more interesting than you would imagine, before anyone thinks, oh, I'm just going to look at loads of the same thing. So I have two decks that I have counted as purely affirmational, and this is one of my older ones. So this is the Am Powerdeck, and I got this in 2016, I think, maybe even 2015, right early on when I joined the tarot community online and decided to return to tarot and oracle in a big way. And the creators had a 100-day challenge, and you pulled a card every day for 100 days. And if you are very bored and you scroll all the way back on my Instagram, then you will see that I in fact did participate in that challenge with this deck. my readings are a little bit tragic. I was definitely trying to find myself, and it's one of the reasons I actually leave the content up, because I think it's important for all of us to see how other people and ourselves evolve, change, develop. But also I very much was at a point where I wanted to fit in, and so my language doesn't quite sound like me. It's a little bit more fluffy, you know. I'm not anti love and light in as a sort of, you know, a shadow and whatever else being the balancer of it, but in that kind of sort of, I'm not very new age, you know. That's not my jam. And I was definitely dicing with some interesting fluffy language that you would no longer hear me say. But I definitely freaking loved this deck, and I took it away with me to the forest because it was part of the 100 days. So it has a couple of creases. It's incredibly dirty. You just can't tell. In fact, this is definitely making it look nicer than it is. Yeah, it's been very sort of loved and used. And one of the reasons that I enjoy it so much is it's been a really powerful tool in therapy with clients. So some clients, if they're inclined to this kind of thing, I have brought this deck out because, of course, it's not a tarot deck. There's no kind of the historic connotations or links to it that might make someone feel uncomfortable or whatever, because of course I'm mindful of that as a therapist. Unless someone actually come in and said to me, I use tarot, and then it happened to be very, very, very like linked to what we were doing in therapy, a tarot deck is not coming out. But I used to have this on the side, and every now and then someone would show an interest in it. And it was really good for people. People have built, in the same way that I've used it, pulled a couple of cards, built an affirmation, taken a picture of it, taken home, focused on it. A lot of them are things that maybe we don't always say to each other, like to ourselves, sorry. We might say to someone else, oh, you're really compassionate. But how often do we maybe stop and say, oh, you know, one of the things I love about myself is that I'm really compassionate. And so as cheesy as some might feel it is, or even, you know, sometimes when I've worked with it, that part of myself almost wants to reject it. I find this to be massively, massively powerful. I freaking love this fertile card because it very much focuses on fertility as a massive archetype. So like that earthly seed that they can then, you know, work for everything, basically. I really enjoy the colour aspect to it. I work with colour a lot, not in a traditional way, in a very personalised way, as I've said. I just think it's a great deck, and it's passed through many hands as well. Very, very cool. It has the chakras in it. It has this one in it, which I never wrote on because I like other people picking their own word. And I can't envision ever parting with it because it is kind of my soft but useful deck, if that makes sense. Hello, people jumping in. Hello, 𝗳𝗿𝗄𝗏. Hello, Lee. Hello, B. This is far busier than I thought it was going to be. Is this a good time for people? Because that would be great to know. Why am I putting it in the picture? But anyway, that's the Am Powerdeck. I believe that for a while it disappeared. There's a newer version of it now, which is slightly different, but in the grand scheme of things, it's essentially the same thing. And I believe that you can buy it not from either of the creators, but from a crystal-y sort of magic shop online. I can't remember the name of it, but I could look into it if anyone was curious. Hello, Michelle. Hello, Nancy. Hopefully you enjoy your first time here if that's the case. This is a weird part of my collection, I suppose, but still enjoyable, hopefully. This is my other affirmational deck, Whispering Woods, and I got this for a similar purpose. There's a sort of an inspiration behind this. The backs are all the same, by the way, and before actually I jump into my bit about it, I don't know if I got a special deck or whether this particular one, at least printed over here, is like this. So one of the things that I liked about this is that even though it's glossy on the back, it's matte on the front. It literally feels like paper. And I'm not a massive fan of glossy decks. It's no secret. I have them. It's not my favourite. Not when they're like super laminated. I had the 𝗲𝘁 version because there's a bunch of these decks, right? Not always by the same creator, but there's a bunch of these mini decks by Rockpool. Sometimes it says a different publisher. I'm assuming they work together. I think sometimes it says Llewellyn. But, and they were glossy on both sides, and I passed it on. It was irritating me, but this one isn't. And basically my stepmum has had a bowl of angel cards for forever, which is interesting because she's not religious, and she's not interested in angels either. But this deck, it's very well known and it is still available. They're very skinny white rectangular cards with a little picture of an angel that I think is maybe the same, and then one keyword on them. And she's had them in a singing bowl for forever. I go round and I always pick one out of the bowl for fun, or maybe 3. I think her clients do it as well because she's also a therapist. And I wanted my own version of those, but I saw these and felt like they were a little bit more my kind of vibe. I would happily have the angel ones, but they don't, it's quite sentimental in that they're very used, they're very worn, they've had lots of people touch them, they have her energy in them. You know, I want her ones. I don't want a new pack. So I got this, and they actually got me, my stepmom and my dad got me this for, I don't know, birthday or Christmas, one of the two. And it's really cute. It has these little affirmation-y bits at the end as well that all are very nature-based. Grounded, keep to your roots and stand taller than the trees. And it is very soft and it is very sweet. But as someone who has said time and time again, I am much better at being this way with other humans, but don't offer myself the same courtesy very often at all, that this deck has been really important. And it doesn't come out a lot because I still don't currently see clients in person, so it is only me that's using it. But it definitely has its place. I just don't need a lot of these decks, if that makes sense. You've been looking at this deck for ages, Lee. This might go, it does go well with the 𝗺𝗁𝗁𝗁𝗁. Do we want to see people? Because this is one of my joys about the lives, actually. They are a little long for some people to watch back. I have heard that already, which is fine. I'm sure I will do edited videos as well at some point still, but not at the moment. But I do like hearing what you'd like to see. They do, they just look awesome. They are very good decks together, and of course along with the Woodland Wardens. But again, one of those decks that just works with everything. But aesthetically, if you've got any woodlandy decks, then they look good. Yours is the same, matte on the front, glossy on the rear. It's so interesting, and yet it's my favourite. I wish they were all like that, Michelle, because I was looking at the Secret Garden one, which is by the same artist and creator, and then I wasn't sure because I wouldn't mind just another. I would most likely just then not put them in their boxes and like mesh them together. But I don't know, so if anyone has that watching this or watching it back, if they can tell me if the Secret Garden or the other one by, again, Jessica Lee is, as Michelle put it, glossy on the rear and matte on the front. I'm just seeing if I missed any. I don't know what Logan's saying, of course we do. I've missed it. This is the problem with the delayed the delayed comments. They do go well, yes. So we're getting into playing cards, and I have a confession. I make these confessions, so it won't be new. I'm always very honest. I can't read playing cards in that divinatory fashion, okay? So that's not something that I can do at the moment. I have a book on my wish list which probably seems a bit left of field, but it's definitely the book for me. And it's by Roger Horn, who also does like folk witchcraft and a few other books. And it's a 𝗪𝗁𝗫𝗁𝗀 one where it specifically talks about the numbers, you know, and playing cards. And that's what I want to get. But for the time being, I can't read playing cards. I freaking love playing solitaire because I'm sad. Although, if anyone else, at least English, I don't know how far this travels, but if anyone else English is watching this, let me know. Did you grow up calling that game Patience and then all of a sudden realise that across the world they called it solitaire? Because I was taught it as Patience. But anyway, there's a few things that playing cards, why they take up space in my practice, and it's probably the most sort of collectory I allow myself to get as well. I do use them all, which you can tell by the boxes, but we have two categories, and I will take you through the decks, but I'm going to show you the categories as well. So that, I suppose, would count as well. These are all playing card decks that you definitely can just use as playing card decks without getting distracted. These two are playing card decks that are a lot more like oracles. Definitely were created with oracle aspect in mind as well, but they still have the playing card additions, and you could still, you know, play solitaire or whatever other card games. I don't know if you're going to want to play poker with mushroom playing cards. You might be cool and you want to do that too. Yes, B, thank you. You were taught it was called Patience as well. I love it. A friend that plays and pronounces it. Oh, let me go back and read before I start going through these. All playing card books give different meanings. That does not surprise me. Oh, business in the front, party in the back. I love that. Of course, we want to see the pairings. Yes, all of the pairings. You just shuffled your Skull Garden, Lenormand and Oracle together, and it is now an awesome size Oracle. Thank you so much. I never even thought to see if they were the same size. Ah, well, I can't take all the credit for it because obviously Vicar asked, but that's a very good idea, and I might give that a go as well. So thank you for sharing. That is a very good idea. Logan saying, I love the 𝗪𝗪 Burrington's art so much with the kitty deck, and just in general, her, 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪 is a very good deck. So you want to see the insect cards first for sure. So let's start off. The insect and mushroom ones I also use as mini field guides occasionally. So that's their secondary use, other than I'm just a nerd. Their field guide use basically means that I will just take them out with me, and if I happen to see an insect or a mushroom, for example, that's in this deck, then I can learn what it is, because it has the everyday name and then what I imagine is either the scientific name or Latin, but yeah, basically the actual genius of the species, which is pretty cool in my world if you're a nerd. And I love this type of artwork, as we've already ascertained. Now, it's not an entirely working method because, of course, we don't get cicadas over here. I'm pretty sure that we don't get them in England. If we do, then we certainly don't get them where I am. You're not always going to see all of these in the country that you live in if it's from, you know, butterflies of the world. It doesn't say insects of the world, but it is insects of the world. There are more specialised decks like this that will then be more country specific if someone was wanting to go that way about them. But yeah, it's a bit of an all-round nerdy time for me, and every now and then I have a third use for these decks, which is I will shuffle them and pull an animal or an insect, you know, I mean they are animals, but you get what I mean, not a traditional, which is what I love about having the insect one, and I will work with that animal gnosis and explore that animal and consider, you know, any of the folklore or the medicine or any of that kind of aspects, because I work with animals all the time in my craft. Lots and lots and lots of nerdy fun. And if anyone plays Animal Crossing, they'll be familiar with this moth because it is in Animal Crossing. And I also, if you don't mind seeing these, they are cruelty free, they were not murdered. I have, dun, dun, dun. This is a Madagascan sunset moth, top and bottom wing. Pretty cool, huh? For those who like the curiosities anyway. Maybe not so much for those who don't. So that's the insect one. I'm not going to pain you putting it back in. I've got 2 mushrooms because this one disappointed me a little bit. It's a different artist than the insect. And some of them felt like they weren't as detailed as I would like, and then some of them are really gorgeous. Like this to me is perfection. And the moral, I love drawing these. They're so much fun to draw. But I mean, if you get a mushroom deck, just expect them to be phallic as you like. It's one of the best parts of the mushroom deck. However, I found myself not as enamoured. I mean, enough to keep it, but not as enamoured with this one. And I had seen photography ones, which are not as easy to get a hold of over here for some reason. So there's an illustrated one rather. Now this Fungi Perfecti is an American deck, and the lovely Logan gifted me this after I saw it and realised it's really a nightmare to get out of the box. I realised that I couldn't get it over here. It's on much nicer cardstock as well. And because it is a photo, it actually works better, in my opinion, as a field guide companion. And when I say field guide, I mean for fun. I would never use something like this to try and ascertain whether a mushroom was safe or not to eat. So I am assuming that everyone is responsible enough for themselves to know that, but just in case. This is freaking awesome. And was it the Avenging Angel or was it another one that every now and then, if I use my 𝗕𝗕𝗄𝗎𝗄, it's got mushrooms in it, and in the guidebook it says what the mushrooms are. So if they're in this deck, then I'll get the card out of this deck as well, so that I can have like a real good visual. So for me, it's really the joy of having a reference book, but in a card deck. And that's why I said I'm a little bit more of a collector, I suppose, in that aspect. And they don't have as much of an impactful use in my craft, in my practice, you know, but they do have a fun hobby-based enjoyment one all the same. And I just think mushrooms are freaking fantastic anyway. They're just weird and strange and very fascinating. Like, honestly, reading about how they are a part of the ecosystem and what they do is pretty interesting in itself. I highly recommend it. Joanna says, I have similar decks with my local insects, animals, birds and mushrooms, and I love them. Yes, I remember your video, which was what prompted me to go looking more for these and see how many they had of them, because your ones are just so good. I actually would have loved your ones, but I think I can't remember, but I'm assuming the language wasn't obviously in English. But they had such a nice coloration to them as well, because they were like that vintage colour from, if I'm remembering correctly. These, if anyone's wondering and seeing these are made by a company called Heritage Playing Card Company. It's very cheap cardstock. It's not like your Royal Flush, which I am going to show you, just for the fact that I freaking live for this cardstock. And that's just my like actual solitaire deck, and it's my deck that I learnt to riffle or rifle, whatever you prefer, shuffle with, because I wanted to learn to do it even though it hurts my hands. So that's how I learned to do it. But these, the Heritage playing cards, they have a deck for everything, I swear. They have buildings, domestic pets, livestock, flowers, ships, cars. I'm trying to think of like other themes as well. They had crystals, minerals, rocks. What else? I can't remember, but honestly, it's like the playing card company that has everything. But as I say, they're not horrible. They feel nice, but they generally, like, one of your cards will come with like a weird dent in it at the front or a nick out of it. I mean, they're not expensive. You sort of expect it, but I really love this deck, and I think that this one, I wish that they had a bit more of a uniform aspect to them, because you can see here that actually we get the measurements as well. So we get the country that it's in, the measurements, the name, and then the scientific name as well, and that adds to me just another awesome layer. Peacock butterflies are one that we get over here anyway, so that's really fun. Some of them obviously I don't, and I've never seen. And yeah, just another one of the ways that I nerd out, basically. Yeah, they have Polish and Latin names only. I thought so. It's such a gorgeous deck though, and it's nice that they have them local, because I think, as much as I would love that deck, everything is saturated with like English and very like these, you can get these in Britain, or it will say Europe, but it's much more specific to certain parts of Europe, and then you get a similar thing with America, and it sort of like leaves the other places out a bit more. So it's nice to know that people can find ones that are local to them in their native language. This is, of course, just your average playing card deck, but it is everything. I'm very tactile, and this is got a lovely core. I don't think it's showing at all, but it's a linen finish, but like a matte linen finish, and they do wear. You're going to see. Oh, these are disgusting. Oh, here's my bot. Which, to be honest, unless someone wants to be made a moderator, which they 100% don't have to be, it's too much. It just ruins the experience for me to like deal with the bot. But there we go. I think I've dealt with them for the time being. So these have, as you can see, worn. That looks like I've chewed that one actually, which I can assure you I haven't. But they feel amazing. They just, ugh. Oh, is that what it's called? A spanner? Let's see, B. Bosh. There you go. Everyone's freaking welcome. I'm assuming it did it. It told me it did. I don't give people enough notice for anyone to like probably be a moderator all the time anyway. So yeah, whoever fancies it ever, you're very welcome. But yeah, traditional playing card deck, freaking love it. And let's see. Now there's a good chance this isn't going to work because I haven't done it for probably about 3 years now. But will it at least let me do it the one way? Yeah. proof. Freaking proof. I'm so glad that went well. Proof that I can do it. I'm never doing it again. And then on to the next deck. This is one I play solitaire with as well. I don't really do much else with this deck. God, it's warped. And this I bought because I bought it from the rescue at a much later date, but the rescue where we got our cat from. We often donate money to them on our birthdays, like my partner and I, or sometimes for like Christmas or Easter or whatever. But they also sell some items in their shop, and I just happened to be perusing, and they assured me that they still get money back from selling things in their shop. So of course, being the wild cat lover, crazy cat human that I am, I most definitely felt like I had to get this deck, and have never felt sad about it since. I like the little blurbs underneath them. So for Savannah, it says, likened to dogs in temperament, they love human company and can even be trained to fetch. Very simple deck. Oh. I don't know how to show your message, Joanna. Find and fuck is a catchy phrase. Got to give them that much, yeah. Definitely, for sure. I don't know why it's hid your comment. Maybe because... Why has it done that? Joanna, I'm going to give you moderating privileges, but only because I don't want it to hide your comments. And you're like me. We both swear like troopers, so... I probably swear more than you, but I'm not sure why it's done that, so... Oh, it was you, B. You're fine, yeah. No, literally the only thing that needs moderating on this channel is when spam bots come in. Other than that, people are more than welcome to swear. I mean, I say people can do whatever they want. If someone starts being like fucking racist, sexist, just bigoted, xenophobic, you know, then that shit can go too, but... I don't think I'm big enough. Like, my lives don't have enough people on. So yeah. Looking for the Russian Blue and Maine Coon. Want to see my kitties in the deck. Let's have a look if I haven't. Not every breed is in this. What did you say? And Maine Coon. There's the Maine Coon. So they're definitely in there. And this Ridley's, they do dog ones as well. And they also do some other bits with the same artwork. So they do puzzles. Don't worry, B. It's growing pains. It's growing pains. Not a problem. I remember you getting this deck actually as well. I'm not sure the other one's in here. You said Russian Blue, didn't you? Have we gone? Just so everyone can see all the cats that are in here. They definitely have a Bengal, which of course I was very excited about because that is what cat I've got. But I would imagine this deck would have to be like quite a few sizes bigger to get all of the cats in it. I was very happy to see a Rex breed. They are one of my faves. There's the Bengal. I have a feeling that we're gonna, or we have looped La Perm. Yeah, we have. Maybe not the other one, but a very, very fun deck all the same. And yeah, basically I play solitaire with this as well as this. There's really no rhyme or reason as to why and when. I just do it when I feel like it. Pick a deck that I want to look at and away I go. But there's the jigsaw, so proof. They come in these little round... I don't have it, but I mean, look, how cute is that? And... it's still 1,000 pieces, so it's not a bad size, but I'd imagine it's quite simple because, of course, you're not going to start giving cats and things Like, it's pretty easy to work out whose head belongs to where, right? I don't know. If anyone's got it, let me know. And then finally, before we move on to the extra deck that I completely forgot about, oh, I don't know what's happened. Sorry, I was just checking the chat. These, like I said, are very different. Now, these are quite new to me, and I bought them, which I don't often do this, I have to say, but I bought them, or rather my partner bought them, to support a shop that we were in, because sometimes it's nice and necessary to keep those places open. And it just was one of those things, like I was doing some videoing of content in there as well to share with my Patreon people, because there are some very, very cool metaphysical shops in London, and that's where I was. So this was one of the things that we got to support the shop. I suppose my gripe with this deck, and why I'm not sure whether I'll keep it or not, being very honest, is that I freaking love the Deviant Moon artwork. It's amazing. Like I said, I'm very tactile, especially with my playing card decks, because predominantly I'm doing a lot of playing card stuff with them. And this is glossy, and then is, I mean, it looks divine. The gloss really makes the artwork stick out. And then it's got this sort of gunmetal grey gilding on it, which is very, very sharp. It's just not my favourite experience in the hand, I'll be honest. It doesn't come with a booklet, but definitely with Deviant Moon, artwork could be read into in the fabulous way that this is just, it's like just fun chaos, right? This whole vibe is fun chaos. But what I like about it, and what I thought was so clever, was how well everything, I can't think of the name for these other than hearts, obviously, but how well they've been integrated. You are swapping between landscape and portrait sometimes, so there's a good example of it when you want to actually see the picture. And this is one of my favourites, I have to add. Something deadly grows in the garden. I mean, is that not just adorable? But how well is this incorporated for the Five of Spades? Like, very, very, very clever. Just everything that I enjoy about the Deviant Moon creations as a whole. But it just, yeah, it was interesting. I just didn't expect a playing card deck to feel the way that this feels. And I really didn't think that it would be an issue for me. But, you know, it's not like I'm short of them. I still like to want to pick up I love these two, what I'm keeping, you know. I want things to be in rotation and be used. And I'm not sure how much I'll go to this one, so I'm gonna have a little feel out. And the reason being is, I mean, you can't sell a mass market deck that's worth £10 because no one buys them. That's just my experience of it. It's the wanting to do the used deck thing doesn't seem to be that popular over here, or maybe we're just a smaller pool of people, and mass market is so attainable anyway. Because I'm pretty sure that this is on Amazon. The place that I got this from was Watkins, but of course there's quite a few up in London, metaphysics shops, I mean. But yeah, it's very gorgeous. But a few other people said to me that it wasn't just me, they thought it was an interesting choice for a playing card deck in terms of, again, texture. I just hadn't expected it. And then finally, this is the Curious Cat Club, which is the mass market version of Stacia Burrington's, I can't remember what what it was originally called, but it had a different name anyway, and then eventually it got picked up. And There are a few changes from memory. Originally, she had a cat smoking a cigarette in it, which when it went mass market, that card got changed. I didn't mind the cat smoking the cigarette, but I can understand why the publishers probably requested it was to be changed. But it's done by Chronicle Books. It's got this really cute little guide, which is very strange because it's actually made out of cardstock itself. And you can see here that it helps you use it as an oracle. Now, you don't have to. You could just go with whatever you want to from the picture. Or, of course, whatever bees mean to you or schmores, you know. But some of these things I wasn't familiar with, and I'm really glad that it had what they were. You know, dim sum. I probably did know what it was, but I don't know that I'd have had an association for it. But this definitely feels like more of, I made you buy this one. It feels a bit like knife blades when you shuffle them, or at least it does to me. Yes, 𝗳𝗍𝗿𝗄, that's definitely what the Royal Mischief feels like, and it's just not an enjoyable experience. And whilst I obviously have my preferences, as does everyone on cardstock, I understand that different cardstock works for different people. So I think that there being an array of choices out there is a good thing, but that definitely just isn't my jam. This is linen, for anyone who's wondering, sort of linen. It's not, it's linen on the front print, but not on the back. So it's not a linen cardstock, but it makes it seem like it is, sorry. It's an in-betweenie. But these are adorable, are they not? This is what I want in my life. It's just more kitty goodness. Look at this beautiful little 𝗵𝘁𝗍𝗍. And I have used this successfully as an oracle, yes. Sometimes I do use the little leaflety guide because I will stare at the picture and just be in one of those spaces where I'm not getting anything from it. And then other times I'm completely away with it and I get lots and lots of things. Like, for example, this often I think of like something being delicate. Other people might go to beauty, or they might go to, say, one of your finest things, or the finer things in life. But certainly I think of like delicate porcelain, or even like dropping bone china, I suppose. And that's one of the joys for me about another deck like this, is that it's not really trying to tell you what to do with it. It's just, these are some offerings, these are a few things that the deck does, and then you just kind of crack on and get on with it. One of the other changes, before we move on to the final deck, is that I believe a lot more of the cards in the indie one were like this, so they had the white backing, and in this deck she added a few more backgrounds to just add a little bit more colour into the deck. That Joker's brilliant. Little poop. Just a fun little poop. This is one of my favourite cards, of course, because of the mushrooms. The other Joker's doing a little fart. This is a gassy one. This is another one of my favourites. All in all, a very good time. If you're into that sort of thing, of course, which I am. And then before we wrap it up, and thank you for hanging out with me for nearly an hour, as always. Seems to be my my sweet spot, doesn't it? The deck that I have had that's come into my collection that I forgot to mention on my last one, but people will have seen maybe on my Instagram live, is the beautiful Naturescapes Tarot, gifted to me by the lovely Laura Aquamarine 18, who is in love with this deck, and I had it on my wish list for the longest time, and she kindly gifted me a copy. And of course it's not a Lenormand playing card or affirmation deck, but to make sure that my collection is flushed out for the 2022 videos, this has come in, and I would have of course put it in my naturey earth animistic collection, but I forgot to. I either forgot to, or it wasn't here when I did that video. I really don't know. But I've been just having the best time with this deck. It is as it sounds, and as you can see, Naturescapes. There's maybe people in 1 or 2 cards in the distance, but it is not a people deck. It is a landscape deck, and you then just are invited to be in the picture, I suppose, or in the cards, depending on how many you pull. I find it to be really, really evocative of emotion in particular. So some decks will make me maybe have a memory, but not necessarily just like an immediate emotion. I don't know if that makes sense to people. It's just my weird way of processing things. But this, sometimes I'll have a very emotional response to the card before I've processed anything about who, what, why, or when. It's something about nature and how I find myself feeling in these grand sort of landscapes and in these magnificent spaces, that some of which I just probably won't get to see in real life, but also just the wonderful, beautiful things that happen that are sometimes easy to forget and take for granted, like the sky, like all the stars, like a rainbow. I feel like the creator Tina really did such a great job of encapsulating each of these cards in a way where you can work with this, at least in my experience so far, both 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗺𝗃 or in more of a numerology based way. And it has the essence, it has a feeling to it, certain colours. It feels like a really tangible experience using it, even though it is just another deck of cards for, you know, that's the reality of all of them, right? They're just another deck of cards. But I've just had, a very powerful experience with it. And so it's definitely not disappointed, but I don't know how to better articulate it. I did do a video on my Instagram live that should be on my IGTV now, discussing it as well. But I'm not sure that I've done it much credit. I would say go and watch Laura's video of it, because she does a far better job than I. There's just something about it, and sometimes that's the way of it, isn't it? I've always wanted a photography deck, but hadn't found many that I felt like would speak to me, where they made sense to the way I read, and that I could still incorporate the systems and the structures in which I work with, as well as my intuition and as well as what comes up in the moment and all of that good stuff. But you know, some decks, yes, it makes sense to the creator, of course, because they put it there, but it doesn't for you. And I find with the photography decks, it's far more of a challenge, in my opinion, to actually get them to land, because there's a lot of symbols and artificial things that are not being put into those cards as a part of that prompt. I don't think that it has its own system, but I don't know if she made it more with the 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗺𝗃 or with the numerology in mind. It feels 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗺𝗃 enough for me, but someone said to me recently that they said that I was very good at being able to see systems in decks anyway, which I'm assuming is like a compliment. I have no clue. But whilst I never feel the need to force a system, like I'm not going to read the 𝗨 as a 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗺𝗃, for example. That doesn't make sense to me. It wouldn't bother me if anyone did, but it doesn't make sense to me. But with decks that are like this, or you know, like your Pippish decks, I'll very much go based on sometimes an amalgamation, which really annoys some people, I know. It's an interesting talking point. I was listening to someone say recently, and I can't remember who it was now, unfortunately, that they don't like mixing, like it's either 𝗪𝗿𝗺𝗺𝗃 or it's 𝗨 or it's numerology, but they don't mix those messages at all. For me, I suppose I can feel the strings of communication in which all of those systems agree with each other, as well as their differences. So it makes sense to me as to how they blend and influence and work with each other. So it's not so much of an issue unless, of course, like I said, I'm working with a very traditional deck, and then I will just honour the tradition and again whatever comes up intuitively. But I would argue that my go-to is sort of a blend of several, and that's how I would read this. Hopefully that answers the question. That's me. I am fini. I have one more deck collection video and then we're officially finished. But I haven't decided whether I'm going to edit the version that I've got, which is a people deck collection. I think it's about 8 decks perhaps, not mass amounts. I don't have very many people-y orientated decks. But I do have a pre-recorded version, so if I feel like I'm up to editing it, then I may just do that. If I really don't, then I'll probably come back next week and just do a live and finish it up there. Then I will be free to return to VRs and all of that good stuff. I saw a really interesting 𝗕𝗁𝐺𝗿𝗄𝗃 VR recently on, I don't know if she's changed her name on, not on Instagram, on YouTube. So I can't remember, but her original tag name has always been 𝗪𝗏𝗺, which is 𝗳𝗿𝗄𝗃. And she recently returned to YouTube just the other day with a 𝗕𝗁𝐺𝗿 tag that she had seen elsewhere. I definitely want to do that. It looked and sounded like a lot of fun. But other than that, I'm just keeping an eye out for tags. So hopefully I can make this a semi-regular occurrence, but it won't just be talking about my collection, because yeah, I'm almost done. I'm glad that you all had fun. Oh, from Australia, thank you. Much love back. Always good to see a fellow cat lover. It's okay if you don't like cats, everyone else though. I don't expect everyone to love them, especially not as much as I do. You're very welcome. Yes, I think 𝗳𝗿𝗄𝗃 has changed their channel name as well, definitely. So if you look for 𝗪𝗏𝗺 and you can't find it, that's why. But I couldn't tell you what it was. If you comment below and you're curious, then I'll be able to find it at a later date. So yeah, shout out to 𝗳𝗿𝗄𝗃. Other than that, I'm going to wrap this up because it's an hour. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you to my mods. I hope that this is another at least semi-enjoyable and informative exploration of my decks, and I will see you all again soon. Bye.